focus. Ideate, innovate, enable. Forbes India and ServiceNow present the COO Collective.
Hello and a very warm welcome to Forbes India and ServiceNow present the COO Collective. I'm Mugdha Kalra, and it is my absolute pleasure today to interact with the top leadership of some very successful and trusted brands about their current experience with the PPT framework. Well, back in the 1960s, when Harold Leavitt was designing this framework of people, processes, and technology, little must he have imagined how this balance will get affected with the changing pace of technology. This framework is most often used when deciding whether to purchase or implement new technologies. Well, today, we are looking at how the PPT framework can be leveraged to enhance the overall operational productivity of the organization and strike that critical balance. Well, joining me on this panel, Mr. Sambit Roy, COO Brinks Inc., Mr. N. Srinivasan, Senior Executive VP, HDFC Bank, Mr. Rahul Yanurkar, President and COO Steel Business, Welspun Group, and Mr. Venugopal Arkot, Senior Director, Solution Consulting, ServiceNow. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Let me begin by asking each one of you how the process, people, and technology framework has spanned in your own organization over a period of time, and how has it evolved? I'll start with you, Mr. Roy.
People are our assets. That's number one. The second is the need of the business, need of our customers has obviously intrigued us to look into processes and implement technology wherever we felt it was required. And that's what we've done. We see technology as enablers for our workforce, something which improves service delivery, something which improves operational excellence. And I would say over the last few years, we have focused a lot on operational excellence, which is to talk about technology and also various lean initiatives that we've taken within the organization. So I think Brinks has done a super job over the years.
When we talk about the banking sector as a whole and technology, my God, it has revolutionized how we do our banking at HDFC. What has it been like? What have been the challenges? I'm keen to know about that as well.
Our raw material as banking, what is our raw material? Our raw material is about, say, money and then the people and maybe the technology. So even the technology is operated by the people and the processes. So as we say, whatever we do, any service which we render to the customers, it's how is that delivered? It's delivered basis a particular process, and that process has technology. It could be having a percentage of technology, and rest is all operated by people. Even that technology which is there has to be operated by the monitored and also handled by the people. So it's absolutely critical for us that how the people handle that. It's the people who make it all happen. So that's been our evolution over the period of time. We have seen that happening.
Well spun. It spans through a lot of verticals. With yours, technology and people and processes has also gone through a lot of changes. What has been the experience like?
We are a very good blend of very, very diverse businesses, I must say, from textile to line pipe to infrastructure to flooring and to logistics, etc., etc. But steel vertical has recently been carved out as a steel vertical. They had some interest in the steel, but now we are into iron and steel making, ductile iron pipe. We are into rebar, we are into steel. So all this put together is called steel vertical. And while we did this, we chose the best technology, I can tell you. Our basically guidelines or our four major pillars is basically innovation, customer centricity, then technology and inclusive growth. Based on this foundation, we are moving ahead and we are growing ahead.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Mr. Arkot, PPT framework, when we talk about, is a critical balance, and we have just discussed people, processes, and technology. But gone are the days when everything was moving in sync. Now the speed at which technology is entering industries is sometimes very difficult for processes to adapt to that, and then, of course, people to be trained. What do you think is the major challenge at the moment in striking this critical balance?
You talked about to start with in the back in those years. If there was a manual transmission and you wanted to be an automated, this thing is able to understand the speed, the road speed, clutch and engagement for that person to operate automatically and move. And that's the metaphor. In this context, if a conversation needs to happen for a customer coming with a complaint, how do those machines understand the context of the conversation, the emotions of this individual and the behavior? How do I respond to that with empathy? Is the machine's problem today. So how do we bring technology to be personalized in each one of these dimensions is an important aspect of how we frame, reframe. Processes needs to be relooked. And ServiceNow as a platform looks like in a service-centric manner. Each and everything if you do, look at it from a service point of view. Each of these processes define a work and a work sequence, a sequence of event, defined by people who are going to execute it. Is there a way, a digital footprint that we can leave so that we are open to the regulators, open to risk and security that are in place, and become a transparent organization? There can be no better way in defining the future for ourselves in a governed company.
Right. Mr. Roy, how important is a buy-in from the people that you're going to work with when you are thinking of adapting new technology? What has your experience been like? Because you introduce a technology and you don't have your workforce ready, that delays processes. Have you faced situations like that, and how have you navigated out of it?
Very often it happens. Very often it happens, and I'm sure all the distinguished panel over here would agree that whenever you are trying to do something new or change something, there is bound to be some amount of resistance. I think it's again going to be a mix of top-down as well as bottoms-up approach. You can do town halls to tell people why you want to implement a new system, how it's going to enable them. Make sure there's no fear factor, that people may actually lose jobs because you're implementing technology. And why it is important? Because in this very, very dynamic environment of business and market, unless we keep changing ourselves and our ways of doing business, which actually goes with the needs of the market and the changing needs of customer and their behavior, it will be very difficult. We have to look at service delivery. We have to look at training our people when it comes to technology. And it's something which is constantly, continuously, consistently done. Now, when we started doing this business, a lot of this technology, process, systems weren't there, but they've been implemented over the years. And it is also because it helps you control, monitor. You can have dashboards to look at productivity, performance of a particular area. You also, kind of come up with observations as to maybe what was done correctly when we implemented and what we need to do now, maybe because the result, what we desired, is not exactly what's coming, but maybe we do this and we get there. So something of that sort,
It's a very interesting thing, important question also, that how do you do that buy-in thing? It's often the most critical thing.
Absolutely.
And the stakeholders normally, unless they are all at the same page, told what are the benefits.
Yes.
And it is not necessary that just because there's a fantastic thing which is coming in, everybody will immediately pick it up and start utilizing it and start doing it. So it's quite possible that in another setting it's happened, but in this setting it's not happened.
Very much.
So that's a very big challenge. And you mentioned about the holding town halls, communicating. No amount of communication here is less. You need to keep communicating,
Yes,
talking to them about it and all that. So it's a big thing.
It is very important to bring interventions, which are required for a specific group. Right. If you think a balloon as an environment of a company, and if you press a finger, where the change is happening, around that the people are most affected. So we have to make those selective intervention for those guys, and explain to them rather than having a generalized training program. So this way we can stop that localized inputs.
Well, on that thought, we will take a short break. But when we come back, we'll talk more about some of the best practices and how to streamline processes for cohesive functioning. So stay tuned.
Forbes India and ServiceNow present the COO Collective. Forbes India and ServiceNow present the COO Collective.
Welcome back. You're watching Forbes India and ServiceNow presents the COO Collective, where we are talking about people, process, technology, and how systems and practices are evolving at some of the very successful organizations whose leaders I'm talking to and have the privilege of speaking about the PPT framework. Mr. Srinivasan, we are talking about people, processes, technology, but when we are talking about people here, we are talking about the people in the organization. You have other set of people that you are also interacting with. In this scenario, how important does technology and those people become who are going to adapt this technology? And especially in the banking sector, where you have people of all ages, what has been your experience like about introducing technology to them and preparing those people for these processes?
Before you even develop something, a good work done by ensuring that there you do a prototype, do a simulation with them, walk through that before you even start taking it to the developing board goes a long way to ensure that the whole thing is all taken up very well. So that's the key which we have seen over a period of time. Also, typically, another thing which maybe it requires piercing the mindset of the people who use it is about telling them that take it all in incremental steps. Don't try to have the mindset about all or nothing.
Taking the sentiment forward, Mr. Akut, I want to know how should then organizations, when they're sitting and talking about introducing new processes, think about what are their priorities and where do they start from?
I think it's an important aspect that you were referring to your customer. That's a very important aspect. As an employee experience would lead to a greater customer experience. So it's important in terms of how do we provide this environment for these employees who are actually serving the customers. And hence my perspective in terms of a service mindset is an important, as we call Seva Ki Bhav. So I think that will evolve in terms of how you prioritize your business processes. Feedback, we mentioned about feedback. It's about how I'm able to hear my customers at the first and foremost. Do I have ability to listen in various different forms and make this person who wants to respond to that, react to that in a much more effective manner rather than going around hustling everywhere else? So how do we make that? Why do I have to call you? I have some concerns, issues, I am calling you, but from a business point of view, I also want to take this connect that's happening today to convert that conversation of solving you, helping you, to at least provide you with an opportunity, say that, can I help you in various other forms as well? So that's where the enterprises are moving. But the question is, are we providing enough intelligence for this person who's having this most important conversation with the end customer to make that conversation productive for solving and for having those conversations for future revenue opportunities? This is easier said than done. Right. And that's where the framework of front office, middle office, and back office comes in.
You know, both of you mentioned about feedback, and you're talking about listening and observing. And what they usually say is, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it, right? Mr. Erulkar, I would want to ask you, what are the metrics? What are some of those systems that you put in place that actually measure what is happening and obviously giving you an insight then as to how you need to perhaps take a step back or take a step forward or rethink?
Two important aspects in this. One is we have decided to have a KPIs, key performance indicators. This is the crux of the matter. It has numbers, it has international benchmarking, what you fared in the last quarter, what you are faring now. So all these KPIs encompasses all the activities on the ground to measure those indices where we are performing better or not. And coupled with this, if we have standard operating procedures, which may not have KPIs, but will indicate how to operate a certain plant or a situation, how to react, how to construct in a manner. In Westman, there's a lot of culture of SOPs. We have even SOPs to basically how the office will look like, how the bathroom will look like, how the chair has to be brought. So these SOPs and KPI combination, I am finding it very, very useful. And the recent successes what we had, a good ramp up and a good production, is because of this, I believe.
Mr. Srinivasan, the question always is, how much technology is good? Main question is, how do you sieve technology or people-centric at the moment?
When you're trying to streamline processes, we have a concept called PCWS, process change without systems. Do not forget that in an existing process, first of all, try and see what you can innovate. First of all, try and remove redundant things which are not needed at all. Then you talk about introducing technology, introducing digitization, and so on and so forth. So this pertinent question, how much of technology, this I feel right now maybe of sometimes forgetting that you need to first look at the process in its core to see what's wrong here, what are the challenges which we're facing right now, what can be eliminated, what's redundant, what's not needed now, and so on. So that's the thing which when you look at technology. There's another thing, interesting thing which I like about this is that when you try to automate, if you're doing it mindlessly, if you're, for example, trying to automate an inefficient process, inefficiency gets automated. So that's what happens. So if you're not looking at it, so very good question. So it's a mindful thinking is necessary there.
I want to add something to this. Whenever we are trying to get in technology or a system, which obviously is with the intention of giving you maybe an edge over competition or to be able to manage your business better, there are three questions in general which come up. What is a must-have in that technology or system you want to implement? What is a should-have? And what is a nice-to-have? Once you break that into
should
three,
have, must have, nice to have.
nice to have. I think whenever you're trying to implement technology, bring in, especially large organizations, various things that you will encounter, like we spoke. So I think we have to decide what's required now, what is the enhancement that we can keep for the next, and then so on.
One of the questions that very often comes to my mind is when we are talking about companies that are having presence not just in India but outside as well, and when you talk about multinational companies working out of various other countries, the processes are different. When you are trying to bring those processes to your own country, the dynamics are different. How does that play out?
Every country, based on the local dynamics, may adopt a particular process specific to that need of that market. But in general, across the globe, wherever we are present, there would be certain thumb rule to do a particular activity. So those processes fundamentally don't change. There could be a few things which is specific to that local market that, like many people come up with this punchline, global reach, local touch.
Localization.
Globalization with localization and so on and so forth.
Right.
So I think this is pretty much also relevant to India. Because the India market is very different than what you have in Europe or the US or even some of the matured economies in Asia. So we know from experience that there are certain things which work very well in Europe and the US. We are not there. They've not started working as well in India. Maybe another 10 years, 20 years or whatever, we don't know. But then we still have to do business. We still have to concentrate on the core. So the basic processes fundamentally don't change. But yes, we do certain, changes to the specific needs of the market.
But there's a cultural touch to this, I will tell you, if you go international. I was in US and Australia before I came here 1 year before during COVID times. And Australians, how to deal with them was really tough. They feel that they're entitled for the salary. Unlike in India, where we can make changes, we can say that you are no more required. But there, they are entitled, and they feel that they are entitled, and they don't tolerate like the plant will get closed or anything. That is not their problem, and very tough to deal with, from the cultural aspect. And US, they are very casual sometimes. They don't feel job is their primary thing. They will come to the job as a fun. They will work and then they will go. These are the cultural angles I wanted to bring it to the.
Now, that's a very important point, because when we talk about people, the mindset obviously comes into play. Mr. Akur, closing comments from you. I'm intrigued as to what is the future of people processes technology with ESG goals, with sustainability, with what we are committing at G20. So what do you think offices and organizations and corporates should now be prioritizing?
I think, thanks for those intriguing conversations. Between data and decision, there's a context that is very important. And this context is going to make this business work flow. And data is important because at the end of the day, if the data is in siloed, it would create another silo, and we would be solving the problem of silos and sprawls of silos. How do we make that data talk to each other and make a context so that we can talk about that KPIs, and this relationship makes those meaningful decisions possible. And hence this chain of a data model that's important to connect and take data from everywhere and makes those decisions by itself. The machine is going to make much more intelligence. The future is about how do we invest into those technologies, not just about blindly investing into some data coming and interpreting our businesses,
right,
but adding a context to our decision making. And that's going to be fundamental. The workplace and the workforce are going to change in many different dimensions. How are we going to be prepare ourselves thinking about this future, making it easy, making it relevant, making it contextual is another important aspect of it. At the end of the day, the platform is one that stitches every silos together and bringing the relationship much more stronger, much more redundant free, and much more secure. ESG you talked about is a very important aspect. I think in more the hearts of each and every leadership here is about anything and everything you do, ESG is embedded into it and not a separate part of it. If I switch on a light or switch off a light, ESG is embedded into it. If I'm traveling to the office and going back to the office, it's embedded into it. If I manufacture a pillow and somebody is using it somewhere and the customer is using and saving on the ESG, by using this material is an important aspect of it. And all of these you have to, as an enterprise, measure and show it to the whole world itself. But that is not a separate activity. That is part of the activity that we do. And we at ServiceNow help in make these transitions and transformations possible. And that's where this platform is working closely with these customers and helping together to make this world better.
Well, that's a wonderful note to wrap this panel on. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time and for all those wonderful insights.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Forbes India and ServiceNow present the COO Collective. Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.